Good morning. Well, you've seen the title, and that might be slightly misleading, but it is sort of correct also. Let me explain. I've been camping for many years, and the one big debate that I often see going on is about your sleeping bag and whether you should keep your clothes on or whether you should sleep naked. Now, I've got fairly strong views on this from experience and just logic, to be perfectly fair. But there is a certain amount of people that say you should strip down virtually naked or completely naked before getting into your sleeping bag. I've seen this especially from the likes of the Royal Marines, etc. Now, I question this, and here's my reasoning why, and what I'd also like to hear is your thoughts on the subject, and whether you're serving or ex-military, or maybe a hiker, backpacker, wild camper, much like myself. What's your background? What's your experience? And what do you do? That's my questions. But here's just my thinking on it. What they try and say is, by getting in your bag naked, all the heat that's radiating off your body makes the bag loft. And that is technically correct. Heat makes the insulation within your bag loft. But even if you get in your bag fully clothed, doesn't matter how good your clothing is, there's always a certain amount of heat that escapes. So you are going to build up that warm air within your bag anyway. The bag is still going to loft. It might take slightly longer, but it's still going to loft. The other thing, of course, is most people will agree, whether they be military or mountain climber or a hiker, the layering system with clothing is the most efficient way to go. It's no good just having one big thick jumper. If you had 2 or 3 thinner layers, you've got lots of little air pockets where the air can heat up. All that heat your body's producing is getting trapped within these layers. Now, the more layers you've got, the more efficient that is. It's no good if they're tight layers, because you need breathing space, shall we say. You need somewhere for the air to heat up. Now, if you've been out all day with your layered system on, you've burnt a lot of calories and effort to build up that heat that you've got that's keeping you warm. Why, when you go to bed, would you take your clothing off, release all that heat, and you're sort of back to square one to get in your sleeping bag to warm up again? I don't get that. I don't get that at all. I personally gauge it by late in the evening, before you're going to bed. How much clothing do you need on? Do you need a big jacket? Well, if you need a big jacket to keep warm in those temperatures, it's no good shedding all your layers. I would remove my jacket and replace it with my sleeping bag. So I've got the same amount of layers, essentially. Now, the sleeping bag is much more thermally efficient, but that's balanced against the fact that you're then laying still as opposed to moving around generating heat. The only time, and I mean the only time, that I would remove my clothing was if I was soaking wet. It's no good you getting in a sleeping bag with cold wet clothes on, because you're just going to freeze. In that case, yes, a single dry layer over you is better than multiple wet layers. But that's just about the only thing that I personally can think logically why will you take all of your clothes off. As I say, I shed my jacket at night, and if I was really muddy or wet or that sort of thing, yes, I might take my trousers off, or at very least roll them up so the inside of the bag isn't getting wet and mucky. And the other thing, if this is a military thing, which is what it seems to be, where this whole myth and rumours come from, let's go to the military bag. Big chunky zip. Now, I've heard these mainly referred to as crash zips or crash systems. I don't know if that's the proper term, that's what I know it as. And the whole idea is, if you need to get out quickly or in an emergency, you don't need to faff about with the puller. They're strong enough you can just burst out. Now, if you are actually in a situation where there's possible contact with hostiles, shall we say, but you want to get some sleep, let's just think about this. You're going to sleep naked. So an opposition force wanders into your campsite and you're going to say, oh, can you just give me 5 minutes? I just need to put my clothes on. It's never going to happen. I know quite a few military guys from all different services, and without a doubt, they have all told me that they always slept in their full kit, including their boots. Just to try and keep the sleeping bag fairly clean, they would put their feet into like a carrier bag or a bin bag and slide into the bag. But if something kicks off, you haven't got time even to put your boots on, let alone get completely dressed. That's just rubbish in my mind. You know, why would you sleep naked in the military? I don't get it. I really don't. I think a certain amount of it is, how can we term it? Willy waving. Or look how tough I am. I don't need my clothing. It's just rubbish, in my opinion. But I would like to hear your thoughts on it. If you've been in the military or currently still in the military, what were you told? How were you trained? Even that to aside, what do you actually do? Or even the civilian point of view, if you are a backpacker right through to a mountain climber. I suppose different situations need different things. What's your experience and how do you do it? Personally, I can see no advantage whatsoever in getting into a sleeping bag naked, unless it is stupid bloody hot. But then of course you have the problem, if you're hot and sweaty, all that sweat, oils from your body, grime from your day's walking, whatever, is going in your sleeping bag. That's why it's always advisable in them situations to have a sleeping bag liner, because it's easier to wash the liner. You don't really want to be washing the sleeping bag unless you really have to. It doesn't do them any good. But no, apart from that sort of situation, really stupid hot sort of humid jungle type conditions, or if I was soaking wet, that's the only time I'd ever take most of my clothes off. Rest of the time, I just take boots off, my jacket off, and get in. So that's that. What's your thoughts? Stick it in the comments below. I'll be interested to read it. I know it's a funny thing, and it's a debate that's been going on for God knows how long. I'd like to get your input on it. I know what I do. I know what works for me. What works for you? Thanks for watching.